I know I can see a few folks, just joining, but we're going to get started. I know we like to try and keep these things in about 15 minutes if we can. So I'm going to dive right in. But as always, you guys, thank you for coming to our Silicon Plains Tech Talk Turbo. Damien Esslinger, I'm going to you guys through some of these things here. As always, there's going to be time for a quick Q&A at the end. If you have questions as we go or anything that you want to make sure gets touched on, you can use the raise your hand or the Q&A feature down at the bottom of the screen there, and I'll try and either stop if I can, if I'm good on time, and kind of run through whatever question you have, or I'll make sure that it gets answered at the end. But you'll notice something a little bit different about today. So typically, at the bottom of your screen there, the first thing I ask everybody to do is ask everybody to check out the poll at the bottom of your screen. But we already have next month's webinar topic selected. We'll reveal it at the end. Hopefully the tease is worth the payoff at the end, but that encourages everybody to hang around at the end of the Q&A. But stay tuned. We're not going to have that poll. But as always, have questions, want to raise your hand, drop those in there. But we're going to dive on into it. So AI CRM management. A cute tagline to this is we're going to try and take the management out of the CRM. But what we're going to do is we're going to get into some basics. What does it really mean to turn your CRM and what functions should be turned over to AI from your CRM? We're going to get into a couple of quick places, easy places to start. And then instead of doing a live demo in our CRM, which is typically what I would have liked to have done, we couldn't find a good way to do that that doesn't risk exposing client data. So what we're going to do instead is I'm going to walk through a little bit of the process we use internally here when it comes to making decisions on what we can turn over through the CRM. And I'm actually going to walk through a little bit of an example process, and we're going to break down some of the steps in that process so you can kind of sort of see what this would look like to implement your business. And of course, as always, if you want to look at anything specific or want to talk in a little bit of a non-webinar format, always here to help. Happy to have that meeting with you. But now that I've spent 20% of the time on the intro, we'll get started. What does AR CRM management really mean? Well, AI can automate and accelerate all kinds of stuff in your business, right? But what does it mean to safely, and that's the most important part of this, safely implement AI into your CRM? I mean, what are the rules here? What should this look like? And so the first big rule that I've got, and this was the first big step we had to take internally, was structuring your data. Now, data scares a lot of people off, especially a lot of business focused people. But what does that actually mean? Make sure your CRM is filled with good stuff. If you've got a contact in there, make sure that the phone number is correct. Make sure that the email address is correct. Make sure that they still work at the business that they're supposed to work at. And this is going to be a big one for our example later on. Make sure as much of the ancillary data with that contact as possible is accurate and filled out. Job title, if you can help it. What industry do they work in, if you know that. AI can help with some of those things, and I'm actually going to get to that on the next slide. But the more accurate your data is, the better any AI system is going to be able to work. And that's especially important for your CRM. It has to be working off of just good information, or it's going to make mistakes just like any employee would if you told it a bunch of incorrect information, right? That's first. Make sure it's filled with good, clean, structured data. If your CRM has this functionality in it, most of them will have some part of this functionality, although it might be called something differently. But if you can put in person types, if you can put in roles, if you can put in industries, this will allow your AI system to target marketing more accurately down the line. So just try and keep those kind of things in mind. Some of that might be net new in your CRM, but most CRMs are going to have that functionality built into it. The second thing, and this to me has been the biggest breakthrough we've made here, the biggest thing that really accelerates our clients when we put a AI CRM system in place for them, build scoring functions. So what does that mean? Most CRMs already have one built in, so you shouldn't have to make this from scratch. But most CRMs are going to have a way for you to be able to say, hey, if a prospect, so this right here is where that person type data that we talk about in step one, opens up two emails from me back to back and then goes to my website, they get a score of 10 points. 10 points means I got to give them a phone call, right? So that's a really simple kind of rudimentary version of a scoring function and what I'm talking about, but it helps you prioritize those fresh leads. And it also means, because you can deduct points as well from something with scoring, you can move outdated contacts out of your CRM, right? Nobody wants spam. Nobody wants to send spam. I know we've all gotten it, right, as well. That helps you only keep your focus on the clients and the prospects that actually have interest in working with your business, right? So that's a really important function to build in. And that score is something really simple you can use to trigger AI automation in your CRM. And then the third one, always got to end on a low note, apparently, but the worst possible place you can turn on AI unsuccessfully in your business is your CRM. And the reason why is, let's just say, for example, you decide you want your CRM to do something relatively simple, and you want an AI agent to go through, look at all of the email addresses, and assign industries as best you can to all those contacts, right? Obviously, if they've got a .gov email, they work in government, for example, right? Um, if that doesn't work, it's going to incorrectly change every single contact in your CRM, right? And that is a unimaginable, kind of irreparable thing to fix inside of a CRM. So if you're going to use AI of any kind, whether it be a built-in tool or something external, something yourself, something Silicon Plains is looking at doing with you, do it slow, test it, make sure it's working properly 100% of the time before you roll it out to even a big portion of your CRM, right? That's incredibly important. Otherwise, it's going to absolutely mess things up. So now let's talk about the easy things you can do and the places you can start. So here's a really simple one, AI enrichment. Take your contact list, just everybody, every email, every first name, last name, company name, whatever you want to do, and have AI. Typically, we use Copilot. We've had a lot of really good success with that, but this would work for really any model that you're paying for. Make sure it's not a free version, so you're not just tossing your company client data into ChatGPT, right? And letting ChatGPT take all that to train itself. Make sure it's a good solid product that doesn't steal your data. But AI can clean your leads and enrich them to find things like updated phone numbers, addresses, job titles. And the best thing you can do, have it find recent company milestones. Maybe your contact just crossed a 3-year work anniversary according to their LinkedIn, right? Excellent icebreaker. Great way to show that you've done some level of your homework. And it will get you kind of that conversation started in a way that's not just totally, out of the blue, totally cold. Second thing you can do, connect your email to it, in this example, Outlook, and have it help you do meeting prep. Summarize your recent meeting notes, summarize previous interactions. Maybe that's they open an email but never respond to it. Maybe it's a voicemail that you left them. Have it bring all of that information up to the forefront and use it to train yourself before you go into a meeting. If you could sit there in that meeting and reference the last time you had a phone call with them that might have been 45 days ago and say, hey, I know we talked about XYZ. I know your biggest concern was this. It takes a lot of that prep and that paperwork out, and it also kind of gets rid of some of that tribal knowledge, to use, for lack of a better phrase, that a lot of businesses have. They go, well, the sales guy or the service person or whoever it is, they just know, they remember from the last time they did this. Get rid of that kind of part of it, and let's automate some of these things so not everything is pen, paper, and memory. And the third thing is something that we really like to do here, and I'm not trying to throw sales guys under the bus, but a lot of people, generally salespeople especially, things like updating their CRM, putting their notes in there, it's just not their biggest priority. It's not what they're best at. That's not, to use another buzzwordy phrase, that's not their superpower, right? That's not why you hire them to take their notes and put them in the CRM. So use AI to keep pressure on the salesperson and to make their job easier, to build it around interacting with people. Notify salespeople when they have phone calls to make, when they have meetings that need to be held. Maybe you've got a client that they haven't met with in 6 months that they really need to get in touch of. Have an AI agent ping that into their inbox every single day saying this needs to be a priority. And to roll with our next example here, AI can help prep for prep all of their leads. AI can take their scores, build it into a targeted market list, and drop it into their inbox every single day at 8 a.m. before they even walk in the door. So now what you're doing is you're really letting your salespeople focus on what they do best, which is selling things, right? So that's just an excellent example of kind of some of the things you can do to really make sure that your sales team is always moving forward and always working within their CRM. So now we're going to get into our example slide. We've got about 5 minutes left before we jump into the Q&A. Well, let's kind of run through hypothetically a real example of something that we've done here internally and done with some of our clients as well, that can kind of give you guys an idea of where to go with something like this. So the example I chose here is something that we really like doing, and that is industry specific marketing funnels. It's a big project. right? It's something that used to take a marketing director an incredibly long time to put together to start looking at A/B testing and even think about what industries they should be looking at. And I just did get a question here. Um, the question that I got before we jump into this example is what should end users not rely on AI for yet? It's an excellent question. So anything that you would consider subjective. So a great way to think about it, is this client a good fit? Is this prospect a good fit? Those are going to be things that AI just can't help with. They can't score those kind of things. They don't know the interpersonal dynamic. Is this person going to be, a good client or a bad client? Is this person going to be somebody that, we can possibly just build a longer lasting relationship with? Do we think, are they going to possibly struggle to pay for whatever it is you're trying to sell them? Any of those kind of soft skills, AI is really going to struggle with. What an AI solution, especially inside of a CRM, is going to be excellent at doing, is going to be able to go through your entire database of everybody you've ever worked with and say, hey, we do really well working with construction companies. Here's a list of 50 construction companies and the point of contact with an updated phone number and email address in our local market. That kind of work, that kind of research used to take, outsourced people building lists and calling and having an incredibly expensive and small hit rate. AI can do those kind of things for me now. So your end user should really not be relying on all of the kind of people aspects of their business, especially as it relates to a CRM. Hopefully that answers. This was anonymous question, so if it doesn't, put another question in there. But yeah, I mean that's AI is really good at summarizing data, really good at recognizing patterns. Those are the kind of things that it's going to specialize in, especially within a really nice structured CRM. Anything outside of that, it's going to be a struggle. So let's check out this example. So, like I kind of mentioned, an AI agent can go out and gather fresh contacts for you and build that list out, can assign industries to them, and it can kind of sort of create, to use another buzzword, it can create an ideal client kind of profile for you. These are the clients we work best with. Let's go find some. Then it can assign those industries based on email domain. I put sometimes on there, right? Because obviously, if you said, hey, the email domain is Silicon Plains, what do they do? Right? So it's not always going to be able to perfectly replicate those kind of things and pull that kind of answer, but it could get you the right point of contact. I actually used myself as an example to kind of build a meeting profile for this. We're going to end up running out of time for me to show that, but it's incredibly accurate and almost scary good. So next step, we've got our list. We've got it broken down into industries. We know the point of contact. We know the right email address, the right phone numbers. What's the next step? The next step is to find the right message to put in front of them, right? Not everything you come up with as an internal marketing department is going to be perfect. Unfortunately, as a marketing coordinator here, I can relate to that uncomfortably well, right? But what AI can help you do is it can take, variations of your message, variations of your, just to use another term, call to action, right? And it can go put three, four, five of them in place at a time and say what works best. It's something that we did here with tremendous success to find the messaging that we currently use when we reach out to prospects. And it took iterations and versions of trying new things to find something that's really worked out well for us. And guess what? In 4 months, we're going to do it again and see if what worked 4 months ago is still working, right? So it's something that you can really quickly try a whole bunch of different messages at once and see what works and what doesn't, and then narrow it down from there, right? And that's a perfect example of AI can put a whole bunch of these tests, these A/B tests in place and give you a whole bunch of suggestions, but it's still going to be on the end user to sit there and go, hey, maybe this is a little bit more successful than other messages, but it just doesn't feel like us. It's not our personality. It's not how we want to present ourselves. Let's tweak that a little bit. Let's meet in the middle. And that's where having somebody who's always working day to day in the business is always going to be a huge advantage. But let AI get you 85% of the way there. And lastly, now that we've got our list, we've got it all broken down, we're messaging to it. Well, now let's talk about again, looping in those sales guys. So what if, just to put this in a hypothetical example, we all know how sales works within our business now. What if your salesperson was sitting at their desk and all of a sudden they got an email on their calendar letting them know that in half an hour they have an hour of free time, and their AI agent put together a list of prospects that all fit their target market and industry, blocked off that time on their calendar so that they wouldn't be disturbed with anything less important, and recommended in priority order which contacts they should reach, as well as a brief summary of what exactly sparked interest on the client's end. That's a whole new level of efficient lead generation and efficient, marketing to net new clients that just hasn't been possible until now. And the fact that all this can be done in the background while your important salespeople aren't busy, making cold calls, writing emails, Googling phone numbers to try and figure out where that person they met at the mixer last night, what their phone number is, right? We're taking all of that kind of, I heard this phrase from a client I was talking to yesterday, administrative bloat, and we're just getting rid of it. Now your salespeople are only doing what they do best, which is that human face-to-face interaction. That's all what we want to spend our time doing. We want to spend our time talking to people, meeting new people, making connections, and growing our business. Let AI help you do that. It's not going to do it for you 100%. So, I know I've picked on sales now three slides in a row. Sales guys, this isn't, we're not getting rid of you yet. But until then, let's make things really easy for the sales team so they can spend their time doing what they do best. Perfect. So that was the last slide for this year. We're going to kind of transition to the Q&A a little bit. So if you guys have any questions, I know I just crossed 15 minutes, drop them in there. But while everyone's thinking of what I'm sure is going to be dozens and dozens of questions, because this was, such a fantastically run webinar, we're going to talk about next month webinar. So 1 month, Tuesday, May 26th, we are actually hitting 1 year, if you can believe that, 1 year of webinars, which is something that I was terrified to do the first one, and I can say I'm now more terrified 1 year in of hosting these things than I was when we started. But we're going to do kind of a special Q&A year-round, kind of year-end roundup, as I trip over my words there. So we're going to talk a little bit about all of the things we've covered in the last year pretty quickly, all the biggest questions we've got, things we've learned, examples of kind of industries that we presented AI solutions at, and the questions that we're seeing. But this is my call out here right now. If you've got a question, doesn't matter what it is on AI in general, doesn't need to be related to anything in particular. It can be specific use cases to your business, to your industry. It can be as in depth or as surface level as you guys want. Send them my way. You got my email. Obviously, you guys were invited to this here. Send it to my email address. If you want to drop them in the Q&A right now and just say, hey, next webinar, this is my question I want it covered, do that now, right? I mean, we're going to cover a whole bunch of ground, but that is going to be Tuesday, May 26th, also 3 o'clock Central. Should already be on all your guys' calendars already since you attended this one. If you have any questions, just send them in there and we'll cover quite a bit. So with that, let's kind of dive into Q&A here. I see a couple of questions got submitted. So let's dive into this first one here. So first question here, how hard is this to learn for non-technical users? Well, here's what I would say. Setting it up for a business is hard, especially to do it safely. Right now, we have these webinars, we do boot camps. We also, of course, implement these kind of solutions for people. So I would say, if you're looking to implement something like this company wide, to be the person who builds these kind of AI solutions, there's a lot of moving parts. It can be pretty difficult, especially for people who are not technical. How hard is it for the end user? Not hard at all. The goal is for these kind of things to run on their own, to really be built into, maybe it's your email, maybe it's Microsoft Teams if you're a Microsoft shop, but to operate kind of independently and to just be there as kind of your helper, right? To live in that Microsoft environment where it's always doing work, but where it's not impacting and bothering your employees, right? So for something like, say, the CRM management, your salesperson at the end of that, to use our example that we just covered, the person who's using AI for, lead generation inside their CRM, your salesperson at the end of the chain is only seeing set appointments on their calendar and getting, an email or a Teams message, whatever the preference is, of qualified leads with, meeting notes and what industry they're in and that kind of information. So it's not hard to learn from that perspective. We do offer trainings and things like that for people who are interested in something like this. We'll come in and we'll train your team, and that might be virtual check-ins, depending on where you're located. But super easy to learn. We're seeing right now for clients where we're rolling out something similar to AI CRM adoption. We're seeing about 85% adoption, which is about 5 to 10% kind of better than uh, industry standard, if you will. So we're finding that if you go to salespeople and you say, "Hey, let's make you more money faster," they're game, right? So it's really easy for them to learn, and nobody likes spending their time doing administrative stuff in their CRM anyway. So it really is typically a win-win for everybody. Hopefully that answers your question. If not, Megan, let me know. Next one I've got here, this is an anonymous submission. So here are what are the most valuable features of a standard CRM that can be boosted by AI automations? That's an excellent question. My absolute favorite is most CRMs are going to have some type of like workflow or processes or steps tool built into them. So, for example, we use HubSpot. That's referred to as workflows. What workflows are is it's just a chain of things that happen with specific steps. It might be, hey, we send an email, we wait 3 days. If they clicked an email, we send them some different email, and if not, we take them out of our marketing funnel so they don't get spammed. Just to use a really simple example. AI can not only examine those workflows most of the time, depending on your CRM and what access to that looks like, but it can also build new ones. So that's where we start talking about how can I A/B test 5 messages to one industry that would take a marketing specialist weeks to set up. AI can do it instantly, right? And that's where you can get into the really complicated, if they click an email and they sign up for our webinar, what happens next, right? To use a live example of people that we have, on the call with us here. Well, the answer is what happens next is uh, they are going to they're going to become part of our marketing funnel until they say they're not interested or until they, sign up to have a meeting, right? AI can not only create those things now, but it can manage them. It can assess them. It can give you a live check-in and say, "Hey, Damien, yesterday we loaded up 500 new contacts across these 12 industries, and 12 of them said that they weren't. 12% of them said they weren't interested right away. I think we should fix this messaging. Here are three ABC options that we can put in place. Can I do that?" So you're taking something that is not necessarily technically complicated for a marketing or business development person to build, but it's incredibly time consuming. And we're having AI just pound it out in, seconds, right? So hopefully that was an anonymous question. If that doesn't answer it, just, drop a line, let me know. Next question here, I got from Titus. It says, what rough percentage of clients are using AI tools or looking at implementing them this year? Excellent question. We ran a big annual survey like we do every single year at the end of the last calendar year. And what we saw then was that about 40 to 45% are curious, right? They'd be willing to have the conversation. Some of them have implemented AI tools since then. Some of them haven't, but it's on their radar. They're interested in it. It is kind of on their plate as something they want to address in 2026. That's about 45%. About 10% are going, "Wow, this is incredible. Let's do this right now." And all of those are uh, are using AI tools of some kind from us. So that gets us up to a 55%. The remaining 45% well, I guess I could have just answered this about 50-50. About 45% of people are just not interested in even talking about it. They have no interest in it being in their business. And a lot of that comes from a lot of the fear and a lot of the horror stories that come out of people who are implementing what we would consider like unstructured AI solutions. Maybe it's a free version of ChatGPT. Maybe they are vibe coding something from Cloud Code. But it's people who are using free or cheap tools, putting in all of their business data, and then are having having a kind of a lack of success, right? And so that's a very common response to get. It's something we are expecting to probably improve as AI becomes more mainstream, and frankly, as we get more practice and experience implementing these tools for our clients and we start getting some of those testimonials out there, I expect that to kind of, especially for our internal clients here, get a little bit better. But our clients are, on average, much more open to the conversation than what you're seeing nationally. Nationally, you're seeing about 80-20 not interested, right? So I think that says a lot about the kind of the trust we've got in place with a lot of our clients, but you're always going to have people who are not into it, and that's totally okay, right? But our job is to be here to answer any questions and to put any solutions in place that people are interested in. So, tell you this, hopefully that answers your question. next question that I got here. It says, "What is vibe coding?" So vibe coding is essentially this industry that exploded overnight with the advent of AI, which is people in businesses or personally who are coding things using AI. So they're having AI write the entire code. They have no coding experience whatsoever. It's typically a lot more laid back, as you can imagine, than people who are professional coders. But what's happened is vibe coding became a huge industry, and then professional coders who clean up clean up bad vibe coding, it has become an industry as well. So it's a little bit of a, I think now it's kind of perceived as a negative term, right? If you're vibe coding, it means you don't have any training and you are letting AI build your line of business software for fun, typically for free, which runs into all kinds of intellectual property issues as well if you're using something like Cloud Code for free. But uh, it's been a whole industry unto itself in the last year. Hopefully that answers your question. Perfect. So that might be I think that's it for questions now. I'll kind of leave it open here for another, 15, 20 seconds. Hopefully that answers everybody's questions. But yeah, fantastic questions. I think just if there was one big takeaway, and this I think kind of becomes a trend of our takeaways for a lot of these, which is that AI CRM management is fantastic if done responsibly and slowly. Um, I cannot stress enough most businesses typically use either the same CRM or even as they move from one to the next, they take all of their data with them because why would you willfully start over at zero if you don't have to? What that means is that companies use the same set of client data for decades. I know, our CRM systems here have been in place for 10 years. If you put an AI solution into a CRM and it goes haywire. It hallucinates things. It makes things up. It, changes email addresses that it's not supposed to. It does anything with your data. There is no way, short of hopefully it's backed up by you periodically before you put that solution in place, but there is no way to undo that damage. Short of going through every single individual contact, finding their email address some other way, finding their phone number some other way for every single person your business has ever interacted with. And that's not even getting into, some CRMs handle billing, some CRMs handle, quoting. It's an unimaginable risk to do this irresponsibly. So I just really encourage people, if you've got any interest in it, I'm here's a resource for you. If are going to do something third party, something maybe you develop in house, just make sure you're using a solution that's going to work well. Don't go use the free version of ChatGPT. Give it all your sensitive customer and company information and let it start making a bunch of changes. Right? That's not going to go well.